Hello, this is the Inquisitive Reviewer, and I am here with Megan again.
Hi guys, we're back for more anime fun.
Today we are going to be talking about Mirai Nikki, also known as The Future Diary, a must-watch for any fans of psychological thriller anime. The anime stars Yukiteru Amano, a high school student whose cell phone gains the power to predict the future.
That would be a bad thing for some people to have.
After Yuki learns about his cell phone's new ability, he is told by Deus Ex Machina, the god of time and space, that he, along with 11 other characters, are in a survival game where they are forced to kill each other until there is only one person left.
That's rough.
The winner of the survival game will become the next god of time and space.
Sort of like the Hunger Games.
They both belong to the same genre battle royal, also known as Death Game and Killing Game. The first work in the genre was the novel written by Koshun Takami, Battle Royal, which was published in the late 90s. It was very successful and was even turned into a movie, but was also very controversial because of the content, because of all the
fighting, the killing, that type of stuff.
I think it was high school students had to kill each other.
Yeah, so that's... Yeah.
It was said in, like, an alternative timeline that Japan won World War II.
Oh, okay.
So it's Japan, but run by the same type of government, World War II.
Right.
I think they just picked these people and put them in a survival game that they have to kill each other.
Right, okay.
For these other ones' entertainment.
You kind of like the old gladiators, really.
In a way, which I'll explain later. It was never turned into an anime. It was adapted into a manga in the movie. The movie gave rise to the Battle Royale killing game genre. And then we got other shows like Mirai Nikki, Batum, Danganronpa, and I think even some shows that were made in the West were inspired by the movie Battle Royale. The Hunger Games was similar that you had a group of people, I think it was 24 people, that were in a contest that had to kill each other. The author of the Hunger Games, Suzanne Collins, says she got inspiration from the different shows she was watching on TV, the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, and the Roman gladiators. Now, back to Mirai Nikki, and while we're talking about the Greeks and the Romans, in Mirai Nikki, all the main characters are based off of a Roman god or goddess.
Oh, okay.
In the beginning of the first opening song, the lyrics are Consentes D, Juno, Jupiter, Minerva, Apollo, Mars, Ceres, Mercurius, Diana, Bacchus, Vulcanus, Pluto, Vesta, Venus.
All gods.
The ancient Romans had the D Consentes, the 12 major gods, Juno, Vesta, Minerva, Ceres, Diana, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune, Vulcan, and Apollo. The ancient Greeks had the 12 Olympians, Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Aphrodite, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, Dionysus, or Hestia. In Mirai Nikki, they merged Neptune with Minerva, so that's why he's not on the list. They had Bacchus and Vesta, and they added Pluto. So there's 13 in the list.
Okay.
Some of the characters are based on the gods more than other characters. The one that's based on Apollo is also partially based on Proserpina. Yukiteru is based on Jupiter. Yuno is based on Juno, which you could tell from the name. The one that's based on Diana has an army of dogs. The one that's based on Pluto judges people for different crimes. The one that's based on Venus is flirtatious, and sometimes she has an open shirt. Sometimes Yuki and Juno work with the one that's based off of Minerva, which is a reference to the Capitoline Triad. Now, this is without a doubt one of the shows that the protagonist's sidekick actually becomes more famous than the protagonist.
That happens. That happens a lot. I've written things where that happens.
Yeah, well, we won't go there. Yeah, and Yuno is more famous than Yuki.
I can see why. She's a powerful character.
She's called the Yandere Queen.
Right.
You remember what Yandere means?
Well, it's to do with love, more or less like psychotic love.
The Yandere comes from the word that means sick. I think like mentally sick.
Yeah.
The Dere comes from Dere, which is like love struck.
Yeah.
So you have the different Dere types, the Tsundere, the Kudere, the Yandere.
Right. But in
and
some ways...
She's the most famous. Her and Shion Sonozaki, they're the two most famous Yandere. They argue which one is the the fans argue which one's the yandere queen, but Yuno is generally considered the yandere queen.
The thing I found with Yuno, though, is that she goes through all her psychotic episodes, but
That's an understatement.
Yeah, but yet she's not totally an unsympathetic character.
It was interesting how Sakai Esuno was able to write that.
Yeah, I mean that's it makes us wonder how twisted we all are. But I did have some sympathy for her.
When I was reading about her, before I watched Mirai Nikki, I saw a couple things call her a psychopath.
Right.
After watching it, I personally didn't really consider her to be a psychopath.
To me, she was one of the better characters.
Yeah, that's saying something.
I know, but it's true.
Yeah, well, when you base the characters off of the Greco-Roman gods, you know how they are, and these characters are in a story where they all have to kill each other.
The gods could be an episode on their own.
Some of the characters, besides Yuki, some of them weren't too bad.
Right.
Some of them weren't really that bad, and as the show went on, they
got worse.
Descend into the insanity.
Yeah.
Some of them were just plain evil.
And a good writer, back to a good writer, I think, can make almost any character seem sympathetic, in a way. You know what I mean? You can, if the writer's good.
There was this one character, I'm not going to say who the character is or which god the character was based on because I don't want to spoil it, but there's one character they were trying to make more like a hero towards the end of the show. And to me, it didn't really work because I just found the character too evil. The second half of the show, the character was a lot better, but in the beginning, the way the character was introduced, I just found the character just too bad.
There's a point where you just can't find redemption.
And what that character did to the other characters, whatever, but was in the beginning, it was just a little too
much.
Yeah.
And you can't go into details because you don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
For those that haven't seen it.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Yuno. One of her main secrets early in the show, episode 3.
Okay. And it's a deep one. It's
a
deep one. And it also adds to the sympathetic part of her, I think.
It wasn't without reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was good or not,
but there was a reason for it.
It wasn't.
To me, it's an under.
It wasn't just from complete maliciousness.
Right.
Yeah, it was more from insanity, I guess.
Probably. That's enough. It was enough to cause insanity.
Oh yeah. Now, one thing I noticed, not about the show, more about the fans that watched the show, I read the manga, a lot of them didn't like Yuki.
How come?
They considered him too weak.
Too not strong, not powerful enough.
But considering the age of the character and the type of situation he's in...
He would be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. He wouldn't be he's not a grown man, and used to dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. And like the one character that's in it is a cop.
Right.
He's going to be used to a bunch of weirdos trying to kill each other.
He should be.
Yeah, he should be.
Right.
And also, at home that his parents were divorced.
Right.
And you know this in the first episode, where you have an idea, the mother's always away working.
Right.
And the father's nowhere in the picture. You know that in the first episode. It's because they're divorced.
That's kind of becoming real life.
And Yuki, he's the protagonist of the show. He's the one imitating Jupiter.
Right.
Or Zeus, but more like Zeus before he became the king of Olympus.
Right.
The king of the Olympian gods.
Gotcha.
Like when the Titans were still in. His parents are Kuro and Rhea. Kuro from Kronos.
Okay.
And Rhea from Rhea. The parents of Zeus.
Right, I know the names.
I noticed one of the other things that the fans discuss is the relationship between Yuki and Yuno.
It's a powerful one.
If it was actually good for Yuki being with Yuno.
Yeah, very dramatic. She loved him, I think, in her
insane way.
Yes.
And how the viewer feels about Yuno Gasai really depends if they like the show or not.
Right.
Because some of the ones that didn't like the show didn't like her at all.
To me, it's a very good one.
It's hard with listen to anime because, well, like movies, that there's so many different genres.
So many, yes.
Yeah, you really have to separate them all by genre.
There's some though I've seen that I wouldn't watch all of it. Wouldn't watch half of it. Then other ones like this one to me draw you into it.
The other two characters that were probably the most sympathetic out of the cats you saw later on in the show, they really weren't criminally insane like most of them.
Right.
They were, well, I think they tried to mirror them off of like Yuki and Yuno.
Okay.
They're like the same type of situation.
Yes, yes.
It's like who's good, who's bad, depending on which point of view you have.
Right. But it's good to have other sympathetic characters.
And as you know, the show isn't just violent, it's also very dramatic.
So true.
And if the two protagonists are the only sympathetic characters, then you're not really going to get that much drama in unless it's between them.
Right, so you need other characters.
If all the other characters are just insane, murderers,
that you don't have sympathy or anything.
You could get an action show out of it or horror, but you can't really get a good drama show out of it.
Exactly.
There's this other character that at first seemed very sympathetic in the first half of the show. Then as that character's arc went on, well, like right at the end, you lost all sympathy for that character.
And you can't reveal who it is because you'll kill the plot, or not that you'll kill the plot. But,
I'll spoil it.
Yes.
Yeah, anyone who watched it has to know who it is. I don't know if I should really say lost all sympathy. What happened in that character's past was bad, but what the character did towards the end of the arc made you really not care what happened to the character afterwards. That whole episode was that was the one I found the most disturbing, I think, in the whole show.
Okay.
That I know was one of the things that the writer was criticized for, the abuse that some of the female characters got. That and the ecchi fan service.
Right, yeah.
So some of it, the fan service I'm talking, some of it I think was that extreme. Like the character was based on Venus, and considering the goddess that she was based on.
Yeah, goddess of love, isn't it?
Yeah. I know some of the people also criticize some of the writing like that. Some of the characters like to agree to different things, different deals that didn't make sense for them to do. Some of the viewers felt that it was done just to make the situation interesting. And sometimes there were a couple things that were a little off, but, it's an anime. It's one of the shows that use what they call anime logic.
Yeah, it's a logic in its own.
But the main thing of it, though, was how the 12 diary holders had to fight each other, each with their own future diary that predicted the future in a different way.
Right.
That was the main idea of it. That, and also one of the main things that brought attention to it was that Yuki and Yuno were both diary holders, so you knew eventually they had to fight each other. They were going to have to fight.
It was going to come to blows.
And that was mentioned a couple times in the show.
Right.
Some of it I thought could have been written a little better, like the ending.
It could have been.
And there were some parts that had fan service that wasn't really needed, like when Yuki tripped and pulled down the girl's pants.
Oh yeah, oh good grief. That's just
unneeded fan.
Yeah, exactly.
But I noticed that any show that deals with a lot of crazy characters that the protagonist has to fight, it could get boring quickly if they don't make the other characters good, because it seems more like a competition of which character's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's
which
true.
Character's crazier.
Yeah, they
This
do that.
show, though, it didn't do that. It didn't get boring. It was always interesting.
Yeah. It's hard to keep a show interesting the whole time, but that's what they have to do. Otherwise, you're not going to have any fans.
Especially when it's a show that's a death game.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's about it, so we'll end it here.
All right. See you next time, folks.
Like I said before, to me, this is a show that any anime fan that likes the psychological thriller genre has to watch.